Right, good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I want to say a special thanks to York St John University for actually nominating me as a speaker this morning. What an absolutely lovely venue. I'm going to quote one of my countrymen, Billy Connolly. This is what it must be like to do a gig inside a wedding cake. It's just beautiful. What a lovely place. Anyway, I want to say massive thanks to York St John. I've been working with them for about a year now on probably one of the most enjoyable programmes that I think I've ever worked on. It's a programme called Grad to Director. We started it last year with the objective of helping basically a whole year's worth of graduates set up their own companies. And we had quite an audacious goal in the very, very first year of the programme to help 10 businesses start up. We ended up helping 11. And 8 of them, we actually took a step further with our partners, Rollets, Andrew Digwood's here today, who's also a sponsor of this event. We actually paid for 8 of the companies to incorporate as private limited companies so we could give them a really, really good start, because the startup pack that Digwood's gave us for the company directors was absolutely excellent. I wish that I had one when I'd started my first private limited company. So it's just a tremendous programme. It's been running for a year. Our ambition this year is to do 15 grad to director companies and another 15 grad to freelancer companies. So York St John have been a joy to work with because they are just so committed to helping their students get into self-employment. So that's why I'm here today, because obviously you can tell I'm not a Yorkshire person, but I have been spending quite a lot of time up here. And I have to say, given you've also been nominated the best place to live in the UK yet again, it really is. I just do not get bored visiting here. So very nice to be here. In one of the early blurbs about this, there was a really unrealistic expectation set that I was going to be sharing some wisdom with you. Now, I'm going to dispel some myths about wisdom, because it's not all it's blown up to be. The first thing is a person who may seem wise to one person may seem stupid to another. So it's kind of a relative concept. The other thing is it takes an awful long time to develop. So if you look at somebody like Gandalf, and I love this quote from Lord of the Rings, 300 lives of men I've lived and still I have no time. So by the time we've accumulated all this wisdom to help us start businesses, we're kind of on the wrong end of the clock. We're getting closer to the grave than the cradle. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about working with young graduates and startups, is because they're fun to work with because they don't know that they're not supposed to be able to do it. They don't know that it's impossible because no one's told them. Whereas us older ones, wisdom will tell us that that's a little bit too risky. You don't want to put money in that business because it might sacrifice your retirement fund. So it's a relative scale. You start businesses when you are ready and the time is right for you. Another thing about wisdom is if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I've done a lot of work around teaching MBAs how to set up technology companies because it's something I've done in my previous life. If you'd asked me 6 years ago, I would have said the way to do this is to be in a classroom in small groups, sharing your knowledge, working on things in real time. Everything was done face to face. And this was one of the classes that I was running up in Aberdeen. Then I had my Kevin moment. The guy who ran the course said, "John, we need you to develop an online version of the MBA." And I just suddenly felt frightened, because all of the tools that I've relied on, my experience, my knowledge, being in the classroom, working individually with people, had been taken away from me. And I just thought, what on earth am I going to do? So I decided to go back to first principles. I have my own recording studio at home. So I decided that I would use my skills as a rock musician to produce voiceovers and narratives and really high quality video content, so that if somebody was sitting on a computer in Nigeria, that they could effectively watch the videos on YouTube. So that scary moment of being asked to do the impossible has actually led me to what my business has become today. So never be afraid of the impossible, because it's when you're doing the impossible that actually creates the best business opportunities. This is what online education was traditionally like. I don't know if you've done it's usually courses in health and safety or quality, and usually I guarantee you're impaling yourself on your pencil in the first 5 minutes of watching these things. So I've tried to develop an approach that is very, very different. It's not mind-numbingly boring videos. The project has evolved massively in the last year because York St John wanted to make it available to nearly 2,000 students. That's a huge challenge. So it's forced me to build things into my product offering that were never there. I have written the book. And one of the grad to director founders actually did the proofreading and copywriting for some of the book. So I suddenly understood the benefit of copywriters in the creative industries, because it really helped. So the book is called Starting a Business or Growing a Business, because the principles are exactly the same for both. The other thing I learned was the youngsters of today do everything on these things. Everything's on a mobile phone. They don't want to sit at a computer and a learning management system. So when I suddenly thought, if I'm going to get this to 2,000 people, I have to do it in such a way that they're going to get it. So I ended up developing an app, worked with a technology company in Norwich who specialise in media streaming content for rock stars. But I saw the product and I thought, hey, if they can do media, they can do audio, they can do video. So I've now got a subscription-based app that's available on the Google platform and the Apple platforms. So I can deliver my program to every single student in York St John University. And that's been a huge selling point. So all the videos are done. I've turned one of my rooms into a film studio with green screen. I've got another room where I do all my video editing. The recording studio is still there, but I pride myself on the fact that the audio is great. But I use a combination of visual imagery and, sometimes I'll appear on camera when it's relevant and not. But it's media quality podcast. There's about 150 of them that take you through all the different stages of setting up a business. I break it down into 4 stages. I actually use the Everest camp analogy. If you try to climb Everest in one go, you'll die. So building a business is the same. You might not die, but you might lose all your money. So I try and break it down into 4 stages. So stage 1 is really looking at, if you're going to build a technology company, at least understand what it is you're trying to build and how other successful companies have done it. So we look at successful companies and how they did it, the people resources that they needed, and defining your role within the company. Not everybody wants to be a CEO. There's lots of different roles you can play within in a company. At the end of the first stage, we start looking at identifying emerging consumer needs, trying to identify the things that people suddenly want now that they've never wanted before. Because those are the opportunities where you can really make lots more profit and money by making your customers happy. Stage 2, we start building opportunities and figuring out how to assess whether or not it's viable and build an intellectual property for your businesses. That's hugely important. At the end of stage 2, I get everybody to do a feasibility analysis. And it's not a business plan because, I'm not a fan of business plans because by some form of magic, they all seem to break even within 2 to 3 years. So what I do is I say, do an honest, objective assessment. I want you to tell me 3 things. It's a great idea. Here's the proof I have a customer, and here's the proof that I believe in this and I'm committed enough to make it happen. The second outcome is, it looks good, but there's some other stuff that I really want to do to make it better. And you're allowed to fail, because the third outcome is I've looked at this, and really it's a bag of spanners. It's never going to work, and here's why. But I've learned a lot of useful stuff that I can now reapply to the next opportunity. In stage 3, it's all about business models. If anybody has come across the business model canvas and the business value proposition canvas, it's an absolutely brilliant tool, and I haven't found anybody who hasn't been able to use it quite effectively. The other thing I do is I give you 40 different ways to do innovation that was developed by Russian scientists behind the Iron Curtain in an attempt to beat the US in the missile arms race. And they did it by analysing millions of patents to look at innovation trajectories across different, and it works. And I turned it into a podcast of 40 different ways that you can innovate around your customers, and it's just really accessible. The final step is I get you to build a stage gate plan that says, over the first 3 years of the business, I'm going to do these things in this order because they're strategically important, and this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how long it's going to take. That's much better than a business plan. So that's my approach. I've lived in 3 different worlds. I've spent a chunk of my career in organisations like P&G and PepsiCo International. I've done some work teaching at the Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen, and I run a startup boot camp for enterprise in Worcestershire at the University of Worcester every summer. And then the third part has been my own businesses. My first business was Energy Music when I was teaching entrepreneurship at Robert Gordon University. I'd never run a business. And I thought, how on earth can I teach entrepreneurship if I've never run a business? I'm a fake. So I thought, recording studio. You're going to find a way of taking that recording studio and making money from the recording studio. Now, I'm a heavy rock guitarist. I'm not going to make money doing covers of Iron Maiden songs and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing was doing classical recording and production for independent schools. So I moved into classical music. It was a beautiful market. They paid well, they really cared about the music, and I got to learn about classical music. Boy, did I learn about cash flow. Getting a 20% deposit from the customer to book me before I did anything because they all wanted the Christmas market. Taking the second payment that covered all the overhead costs before the CDs were produced, then the final check was basically pure profit, but it was cash flow positive all the way through. And more recently, Disruptech, I've moved from audio, it's the same studio, but I'm now using it for audio and video production as well to make educational content. So it's been a great journey for me. I can say without a doubt that I am an expert in my field. This was the specific field that I was an expert in. This was the field that I did my PhD research on. And I can say the word, I can say categorically that my PhD was a load of SH1T. Because I was studying the impact of sewage sludge treatment, effluent on soils as a fertiliser. One of these weird things, it turns out that it's rich in organic matter, human organic matter, that's been purified obviously through a sewage treatment plant. But it's also rich in heavy metals, which is kind of ironic. I'm a heavy metal guitarist. Heavy metal just seems to follow me in everything that I absolutely do. I was looking at sewage sludge treatment. I was interested in environmental chemistry before it was fashionable. And I really kind of, at this point, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I really wanted to do chemistry, but in a way that helped understand how chemistry was shaping the environment. And then after about 3 years in soils and that kind of stuff, I decided I just didn't want to do this. So I moved to the opposite end of the spectrum. I moved to Procter & Gamble, which at that time was probably the world's best consumer products company. This is Procter & Gamble in Newcastle, just up the road. That is the cleanest smelling building in the world. And I would call this the first northern powerhouse, because this place was the centre of the laundry and detergent industry for all of Europe. 300 scientists in that building do everything. Ariel, Daz, Bold, everything. Amazing place to work. Getting my first job in a place like that was unbelievable. But there was a catch. I wanted to be a product development chemist, but they wouldn't let me because my specific technical expertise was in forensic science. So they wanted me in the laboratory solving really, really specific technical problems. And my first project was building that instrument there. And I was not happy. It was great, but I wanted to do stuff. So I ended up finding out things about their products that we didn't know. And I didn't realize anything about corporate bureaucracy. I kind of wrote naive memos saying, why does our molecule fall apart in the box when Unilever's doesn't? Not having any understanding of the rivalry between the companies and the kind of flack that would cause at high levels in the company. So I got summons to the associate director's office to explain why I'd written all this stuff. But within 2 years, I was the world expert in this particular area of chemistry. Unheard of, really. And then what I didn't know was the chemistry that was happening in soils was relevant to the detergent industry. They didn't know it. So we formed this new team whose job it was to fix the problems that nobody knew we had. And I got my first office. I was really proud because I got my office with my conference table with 6 seats for my team of people and all that kind of stuff. I started asking silly questions like, what's the number one thing that consumers really want at the moment? And the R&D guys just didn't give me an answer, so I went and spoke to the marketing people. I went across to the other part of town to Gosforth to speak to the commercial people, the marketing people. I said, what do customers want? They said, stain removal. Okay. Who's working on stain removal in R&D? How many people in that organisation of 300 people were working on stain removal? None. So I just said, right, we're going to do stuff. We learned a bunch of stuff about soils that the company didn't know, and it led to this. It was Ariel Future. Biggest laundry detergent launch in Western Europe, sales of $500 million per year, and I've got the actual advert that was on the telly back in 1995. So I'll just play a couple of seconds of it, just so you can see Carol Vorderman's really awful haircut.
Is this the powder of the future? They claim that new Ariel Future gives their best cleaning ever from the least powder ever.
Can you believe that? I find it difficult.
Smaller pack, smaller scoop, but better cleaning? I wanted proof, so I talked to the UK's largest independent testing and inspection group.
We took 20 of the most difficult everyday stains, like makeup, gravy, clay, let them dry in for 2 days, and wash them as you do at home. This represents the difference we found on chocolate ice cream and mud.
And what about the other stains?
Of the 20 stains, Ariel Future cleaned significantly better on 14, and just as well as Ariel Ultra on the rest.
So would I get the same results at home on heavy stains?
Oh yes, the tests predict you get a significantly better cleaning performance.
That is very impressive evidence. But what about the claim from the least powder ever? I asked the washing machine experts at Hoover.
Well, our machines now use less water, less electricity, so we're obviously in favour of using less powder too, providing it works.
So with a pack that's so much smaller, do you still get the same number of washes?
We tested it using the tiny scoop against Ariel Ultra, And pack for pack, it gave the same 22 washes.
And the cleaning?
Even better, so yes, it does work.
I was looking for proof, and I believe I may have seen the powder of the future.
It led to about 20 different technology patents, and this technology started appearing everywhere, in hair care and all sorts of places. But I feel a failure. I've only got one $500 million brand in my entire career. It took me about 20 years to realise that one is actually more than most people. But actually, if you look at the corporate world, they're really quite bad at this. If you look at every 7 projects that get started, 2 of them fail at screening and evaluation. How many do you think actually get to become successful products? Out of every 7 that are started, 1. Corporates are great at not doing this well, despite having billions of dollars and people, and it's because I think they lose sight of one really important thing. So I did a bunch of research back in 2005. I thought, I want to find out how companies are successful. The answer doesn't lie in corporates. I looked at small technology companies that had started and had survived the first 5 and 10 years, and I looked at what they had done that had enabled them to start from nothing. Came up with a really simple model that effectively something happened in the outside world that created an opportunity, and it created the people and the technology to create that opportunity. They were actually looking at what change was happening and building the products around it. I built the simple model that says actually you need an entrepreneur, you need a whole bunch of knowledge and experience, and you need technology. It's bringing these things together that creates the magic sauce. What do you think is the most critical component of a technology venture? There's lots of right answers, but there's only one correct answer. What's the most important thing to have a successful technology venture? Technology. No, it's important, but it's not the most important thing. It's always the first thing people say. Sorry? People. An idea. No, they're all right, but they're not the right one. Customers. That's it. And all of these companies were absolutely focused around customers. And that's why when David was talking earlier about this passion about understanding your customer and building it around them. I've got 3 questions that I use. Who's ready for what you have to offer? Because that defines the person. When are they ready? Because we all want stuff, but we can't always buy it. I want another guitar, but I can't buy one until my wife has got over the fact that I bought 2 the last time and has calmed down sufficiently enough that I can buy another one without effectively having divorce proceedings initiated. And then the final thing is how do you know? What evidence have you got? But those 3 questions are incredibly powerful. And I'm going to give you a secret equation. To life, the universe, and everything. This is the secret formula that if you satisfy it, you will have a successful business. 2 things beginning with P that customers will either pay you to provide or remove. Give me something beginning with P that a customer will pay you to take away. Pain. Yeah, well done, first time. What's the opposite of pain? Pleasure. People pay for stuff to make bad stuff go away or to make good stuff happen. And when I'm working with people in businesses, that's it. Tell me definitively, what is the thing that you know that somebody needs to make go away, or they'll pay you to provide. Now, if you do that properly, what is the V that describes how the customer feels about what you've done for them? They value it. We need the value to be much greater than what thing beginning with C if we're going to make money. Cost. Well, hey, where's technology in the equation? It's not. It's just a lever. Technology is a lever you can use to drive costs down or improve scalability. And that's a mistake a lot of technologists make. And if we get it all right, we make profit. These guys came to me with no idea whatsoever. One guy was a wind turbine engineer. The other guy was an operations director in an oil and gas company. And they came up with this concept of the perfect pint in less than 3 seconds. It's fast, portable, easy to use, increased profitability, better experience, all this kind of stuff, and innovative technology. He sold this to their first customer without actually having the technology solution to the problem, which I was very proud of. I always say to people, have a number of customers, have at least 4 different customer groups so that you're not building your business around one. So the earliest customers in technology companies are called the innovators. It's the ones that need the solution so much they'll pay you anything for it. So who do you think needs a 3-second pint? Who do you think could be the customer that you know absolutely would sign a check for a device that would pour a pint in 3 seconds? Sorry? Big venues like arenas, sporting venues. Anybody gone and tried to buy a pint at Wembley? I was at the cup final when it was Wigan versus Manchester City, and Wigan won. I've been to Wembley twice, once supporting Birmingham City, who beat Arsenal, And then I was again 2 years later and Wigan beat Man City. You ever go to these venues, you know, you'll miss half the concert to get a pint. I went to see ELO in Birmingham the other week and it was exactly the same thing. It's just awful. The guys went to the Millennium Stadium and they said, we can only serve 30% of the beer that we know customers want. And the operations director said, if you can solve this, you can write the number on the cheque and you can retire on the back of it. And then they went, I found them a technology company in Cambridge that we went to assemble the solution, who were the same people that assembled the Hive products. But they found the problem, and then they've basically just gone and found some solutions to solve it. They got proof of concept funding from Scottish Enterprise that got an engineer, which was 30,000. They've just recently got private equity of 300,000. Festivals, it could be Wetherspoons, it could be pubs. You don't want to go for the people at the end because they don't spend any money. The innovators, they're your first customers, so go after the really, really good ones and build a beachhead with them. Now, you've got to become a visionary forecaster of change. You've got to see things that are happening in the outside world before they happen. Because if you spot it after they've happened, you're in the same boat as everybody else. So you've got to learn to see stuff because change is opportunity. So I've decided today we'll play a game. The problems with most business owners, and we heard people say it today, is they're so focused on the day-to-day activities of the business at a micro level, they forget to take a step back and see what's happening in the outside world that's either an opportunity or threat. So take a step back and actually don't just look at the wood, look at the forest that your wood is growing in very carefully. There's a great tool called Pestle that they use in management schools that I use to categorize change. So I'm going to give you some examples of change, and I want you just to say what you see and what you think I might be referring to as the change in the outside world that might be creating opportunities. Number one. You fell for it. It's actually the European Union. I have been the recipient of numerous European Union directives that have caused pain for the companies that I've worked in. Procter & Gamble, it was a hazardous substances directive that meant we had to do massive amounts of animal testing on our products, which we didn't want to do. I ended up writing a computer program to predict what the labelling should be without doing the experiments. Saved the company huge amounts of money. And it was because that thing that's bad is good. So bad is good. And Brexit's the same. Maybe by 2 o'clock this afternoon we'll have an idea what it looks like. But I look at it, whether I agree with it or whether I disagree with it is irrelevant. It's the fact that it's going to change stuff irrespective of what happens. And I'm thinking about how can I take advantage of that. What do you think I'm referring to here? What kind of things are we seeing in terms of change here? Aging population. Implications? They've either got loads of money and want to spend it, but they're also living longer, so health and you suddenly see this whole cluster of things going on. York St John are actually placing this as a strategic priority, looking at health and social care and using technology to deliver it smarter and preemptive care. I think it's a huge area. They've just started selling retirement flats in the place where I live, and I've thought about one for my mum, and I asked for the prospectus. 200,000 for a 1-bedroom flat, 300 for a 2-bedroom flat. There's clearly money in the aging, but we've got to think about how we exploit it, but exploit it ethically. The other thing is healthcare. The costs of healthcare, where do the healthcare professionals come from and how do we train them? Great opportunities for online education. Technology is moving faster. We can do stuff on our mobile phones that we couldn't do in a spacecraft 40 years ago. The cloud, wow. You never have to worry about different versions of software, and you never own the software, you have to rent it. That's why I'm using a subscription model. So all of these things, it's change, it's wonderful, it's great, it's opportunity. So the consequences of being blind to change, if you could have been around 65 million years, but you can go extinct overnight. The oil industry is an example of that. Most of the companies that I looked at were in the oil industry, and they are really struggling now. I'm running a program for Scottish Enterprise in 2 weeks called Grey Matters, and it's all about helping senior oil and gas executives take the skills and the knowledge of the industry to reinvent how the industry is performing in today's climate. We've run 2 cohorts, and the companies that have come out of it have been fundamentally superb because they've got all this knowledge and experience, and now they're unleashed to do it in a way that they were never allowed to in the corporations. This is Aberdeen. I'm going to be very quick here. These ships should be going backwards and forwards to the oil rigs. They're parked outside Aberdeen and they cost £100,000 a day just to sit there doing nothing. If you go north of Aberdeen, north of Inverness, this is Cromarty Firth. These are all the exploration rigs that are worth billions and billions of pounds of assets that are not exploring for oil anymore. Another big issue with them is they've got to be decommissioned. So you suddenly see there's perfect storms all around us of opportunities. I remember one person said to me, she worked in the press office for the university, and she said, decommissioning. 10 years decommissioning is going to be the thing. Guess what she's now working on? Decommissioning. So we can all do this stuff. Right. I'm going to just quickly go through this. Companies that have gone bust. Kodak invented the digital camera but didn't do anything with it. You've seen Woolworths go bust, HMV go, but everybody's, because they're not looking at the outside world, they're being made redundant by companies like Amazon. I find it ironic that government's now thinking about taxing companies that have developed smart, profitable business models by changing it. I kind of don't like that. I can kind of understand with the death of the high street, but I think reward people for innovation. Same thing with Apple iTunes. This is my final slide. When you go into the future, just look at what's changing in the outside world, the environment and the technology. If you bring those two things together, you create opportunity. You've got the sleeper needs to awaken. You need to become the sleeper that links those two together, and you'll have a very rosy future. I just want to finish off by a quick video of the companies that I've been working with at York St John. I guarantee it's less than 2 minutes.
My name is James Thorne. After about 4 or 5 years working within the property industry, I knew there was a problem between communication whilst renting a property. You know, numerous complaints coming in, and the whole process was so inefficient. And now we've got a product called Tenancy Stream, which is in the process of getting ready to launch. I have joined up with a tech developer, a designer, and a tech officer as well. So it's a team of 4 of us now. We're crowdfunding at the moment to get about £75,000 to take this to market.
I'm Alice Dixon, and my company is AD Creative Limited. My first product is modular home storage. Customers create their own shapes and designs, built from an innovative, patent-pending design of joints, locking rods and panels. There is no need for instructions because what you build in your head, you build in your home.
I'm Rianne, Director of Albarton Copy. I specialise in copywriting, proofreading and illustrations. I studied English language and linguistics here at York St John. I will write copy and proofread for a broad range of client applications. It can be websites, blogs, journal articles, papers, newsletters, all sorts. If you have an idea, I can help you create the copy.
I'm Alex Popple, co-director and founder of Flowery Whiff. Flowery Whiff is a skincare company making balms, salves, serums and solid perfumes. We use organic, unrefined, vegan-friendly ingredients, and where possible, we are always searching for environmentally friendly, innovative packaging for our products. We made our products for anyone who experiences skin complaints, but also to provide a different angle to traditional products. Our products are available on Not on the High Street, Etsy, as well as our own website.
I'm Lauren Hall, and I studied theatre and performance at York St John for my bachelor's and master's degree. My company is Impact Media Productions, which is a production company specialising in visual, audio and live performance, engaging with curriculum content. My customers are schools. I create content for them that they may find difficult to teach, such as PSHE subjects like sex education and British values.
Right, just finish off by saying we're looking for other people. Rollets have been involved, Make It York have been helping. Anybody that thinks they can help us with these companies, you're more than welcome. Just get in touch with me at York St John. If you want to find out more about the kind of stuff I'm doing, follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm posting a lot of blogs on these articles. And if you want to have a look at my online program, you can do it for free. There's a 1 week's free trial anytime you like, 150 podcasts. If you like it, great. If you don't, doesn't matter. Thanks for having me.